Thanks for joining us for an extra spicy episode of Welcome Disruption, where we challenge the usual suspects in senior living marketing and rethink what actually drives occupancy, engagement, and growth. Today's episode isn't about playing it safe. It's about looking at old systems and asking, are we still marketing the way people actually buy? And what happens when we stop chasing cold digital leads and instead double down on culture, waitlists, and yes, our own residents? Today's guest, Mike Brindley, is known for his direct style and census-first mindset. He's not afraid to throw elbows at the status quo, and that's why we're digging in with him today to take on resident referral programs, waitlist monetization, and why expansion planning often misses the mark. But here's the twist. We're not here to echo each other. We're here to unpack, challenge, and push ideas forward so that your community comes away not just with inspiration, but with action. Hello, Mike. I am so excited to be sitting down with you today to talk about how we can maintain census in senior living and some of yours and my out-of-the-box strategies that we've seen in our careers in senior living. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And when you hit the record button, you see transcribing going, you're like, oh my gosh, like every word that comes out to me, like garbled from me. So you're going to have to decipher what I've actually said about this for the next 30 minutes. But great to be here. I loved meeting you at Leading Age Pennsylvania and kind of taking it off from there. Like this should be a lot of fun.
I think so too. So your presentation actually at Leading Age was called How to Make Resident Referrals Sexy Again, which I'm sure raised some eyebrows. What do you feel like communities are still getting wrong about their referral programs?
Yeah, I don't know if it's getting wrong or, not lack of trying. I just think there's this whole age-old, experience where we've done it before. We'll continue the same way we've always done it. And we expect that to continue to drive results. And I think, for me, we've learned so much since the pandemic that, the residents themselves were kind of sheltered for, good long whiles, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And so, they didn't know what the outside world was going on. So if you thought that they were going to give resident referrals during that time frame, like that wasn't happening. So we had to kind of rebuild like what is a really good resident referral program based on this, concept of now we're coming well out of it now, many years later. We're changing the dynamics of the next generation of prospects coming, which is the boomers, and what their experience may or may not be. So I think as we look at resident referrals is how do you think, creatively? How do you think outside the box? And then how do you execute it consistently? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care if they do it the same way they've done it, as long as they do it. The problem is they talk about it and they say, well, the residents know about it and they'll always give us referrals. But resident referrals has to be alive all the time. You turn it off just a little bit, it'll go backwards.
I absolutely agree. And I think Align recently released some data and Welcome Home as well around how the resident referral performs in conversion metrics compared to, say, a digital lead. And I feel like if we as an industry started treating resident referral programs like our census depended on them, because I think, spoiler alert, it really does. Mm-hmm. Post-COVID, we saw how that resident referral carried us during that time of tumultuousness when need and demand had bulked up and was just waiting to flow in. It was those that came through the resident referrals that converted the most quickly and have stayed as our ambassadors. What do you think about creating resident ambassador programs? That's something that we regularly recommend to our clients, just to treat our residents as an extension of our sales team.
Yeah, well, I think especially in the not-for-profit life plan world, they are very essential, and for a number of reasons. One being the fact that they've gone through the prospect's journey already, right? So they know what these prospects have gone through, and so they should be able to relate to that. And at the end of the day, they're going to be better salespeople in my opinion, than our actual sales teams because they've had that experience, right? So I think that's number one, really important. Two, I think that it's whatever event you're doing, the type of ambassadors you use should align with what is that kind of strategy there. If it's a lead generation type of event, you shouldn't have ambassadors that are walking in front of prospects saying, you need to do this, need to move, because they're just getting there for the first time. They don't want to be sold to. So we have to treat and coach the ambassadors to understand, again, where the prospect's at and meet them there. So we're not being too overtly aggressive. And it's so great to be passionate about who they are and where they live and why they're there. but there's a really important time when to share that with a prospect who's going through these, what we call stages of readiness in our organization. The other part is, I think a lot of times with ambassador programs, we choose the residents that have been there a long time. They understand the culture. They are tried and true people. They show well. They behave themselves well. And I think that's important. You've got to use ambassadors that have just gotten there, that are still brand new to the community. They're excited about it. They're most likely to have resident referrals to give to people because their neighborhood outside the walls of the community is much more expanded. So I think getting these newer residents and make them part of the ambassador program versus, again, these people have been on that list for a long time is super important. And, when you're doing an event, having ambassadors that just moved in, you can raise their hand and say, they just got here. That builds urgency and excitement about, wow, this community is continuing to grow versus the people that have been here 12, 15, 20 years sometimes.
Yeah, I think both of those points really speak to the credibility of the peer review. I think even those of us, and we all have a car guy that we call in our friend group or our family who are like, hey, I'm looking at a car, you're the car expert, or a finance friend. And I think that peer review is at every age super important. And we trust them and they convert for exactly that reason. But I think there's also the credibility of I've been in your shoes on both sides. And also I've made this decision and I've done it for a long time and I'm really happy about it. I think the other point that you brought up that is interesting is the idea of, stages of readiness and how can we make sure our sales ambassador program is designed to make sure that they understand when to deliver certain messages. I think my favorite sales ambassador programs have come up organically in communities. We had one gentleman who went and made his own varsity jacket with the community's logo on it and wore it out out when he was out and about. And I think there's a lot we can do to enable referrals, just like we enable sales, whether it's a quick QR code or whether it's, a business card they can leave behind, something that helps them tell the story, talking points even.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think the QR code's a great idea, but like if you're using, let's say, a vendor like One Day for, video replay to send to prospects, have the ambassador do it. Hey, I know that you've RSVP'd for our upcoming event. I'll be one of the ambassadors. Can't wait to see you. So excited to be a part of it. And you can sit at my table. Or, whatever that is, whatever the message is, instead of the sales team always doing it, use that pre-event to drive excitement and engagement to the event. And then, of course, post-event, they can be part of that creative follow-up portion of it too.
Well, I love that you bring up One Day, the idea that we have a sales culture, right, within an organization, and extending that to the residents through that resident ambassador program. It creates just overarchingly, this is how we talk about, and it also proceduralizes it, to your point. Those organizations that are forward thinking and leveraging things like video reminders for, invitations for events, making the residents a part of that process through the ambassador training. I think that that's exceptional. So when it comes to really designing what we need to do when it comes to implementing resident referral programs, you said communities think they've done referral programs because they made a flyer once in 2018, right?
Right.
But let's brainstorm and break down for the audience. What does a real program look like today?
Yeah, I think we need to get away from the one we've done it the same way all the time, which is the residents, fill out a form. They drop it off at the sales office. The sales leader goes into the CRM to make sure it's not a duplicate lead or it's one of 9 referrals. 9 residents have been assigned to this lead already, which, by the way, that's fine. You can pay multiple residents if you want to as well, because if that's 4 or 5 people that know the prospect, you got a better chance of moving him in versus, whoever got it first gets all the money, right? Let's get them all somewhat paid. So I think there's, trying to get away from that. And then 2 is, again, relying on these new residents who are moving in whose circle of friends are much larger, their community, their neighborhood, whether they're in, book clubs, they're going to the gym on the, all the time, like churches, all the things that they're doing, they've got a bigger circle. Boomer stats are showing us that more older adults are single, divorced, or widowed at a higher rate than the previous generations, especially compared to the silent generation. And a lot of them don't have children or grandchildren. So then who are their social networks? It's their friends. So I would really be getting into them, understanding who they are, what they belong to, how active are they still, and how do we reach out to those groups? And then in our presentation, we talked about kind of indirect organic ways, which you kind of mentioned earlier, about how to maybe drive resident referrals, but not in a kind of show it way like, Mrs. Jones brings me Mrs. Smith. It's maybe Mrs. Jones lived in a really nice, affluent neighborhood that has a lot of older adults that lives there. So maybe it's creating a saturation mailer that we're just going to send to those 400 homes in that neighborhood. And maybe they know 10 or 15 people that still live there. And there's a picture of them talking about life at this community and why they love it. And picture their dogs, it's dog friendly. And so 10 or 15 people respond and go, oh, yes, I know them. I'd love to go see the community. But it's that 385 people that say, well, if it's good enough for them, they're from our neighborhood, we should check it out. And so we're seeing great success, kind of assuming everyone knows the Smiths. And so we take advantage of that. If you start seeing in your CRM that a lot of people are coming from a 55 plus limited services type community, and they're starting to look at independent living or even a independent living rental or a life plan community, maybe you do a separate happy hour where two residents who came from that 55 plus now live there, and they're the hosts of that happy hour. And then you're only sending invitations to people who've already been in your system. We're not gonna pillage that community and pillage a competitor. It's the 25 people that have actually been there, they've toured before, but we're gonna make it more VIP for them. It's a resident referral showcase of homes where you do a lot of reimagining of your apartments, or as you've aged communities with good bones have done some really nice renovations over the last few years, and the residents want to see it. Well, great, we want you to see it too, but you got to bring a friend. And so you're doing things like that are more, again, organic, and they're indirectly going to start kind of that lower barrier to entry, easy touches, not a firm sales approach. And you're getting them into that stage of readiness of thinking, and they're moving themselves through the process versus being force fed.
Yeah, lowering those psychological thresholds by walking through with a friend. There was actually a study done that when people were stood side by side and had to estimate the incline of a hill, they actually estimated it lower if they were standing next to another person rather than alone, and even lower still if it was someone they were close to.
Wow.
So we make the hill smaller for each other, right, to climb. And resident referrals are a great example of that. And when you said organic, I immediately thought of one of our communities is celebrating a friendiversary day. There's actually a friendiversary holiday where you invite people to invite their friends in. And I think that this lends us really more towards this future state of affiliate type communities, where we've always known from a psychographic profile perspective that your next 3 residents probably look a lot like your last 3 residents.
Sure.
That moved in. But when we start taking into consideration values and interests, that's where we create these kind of affiliate communities where they're inviting those because they're in a book club. And it's a highly, in this case, in some cases, educated communities. Or it's an artist collective style community. And so they're inviting in their other cohorts within the artist community. So when it comes to rolling that out, though, I think to your point about we create a flyer and then that's it a lot of times, delivering that omni-channel journey as well, right? So like, is it in the bill stuffers? Are we doing door tags? Is there table tents in our common areas that remind people? Are we gamifying it? Meta trends for the last several years have said gamification and nostalgia are huge. So to your point about 4 people recommended or referred 1 person, if each one of those got a ticket in the hat for a quarterly drawing where everybody who made a referral comes together, and now we've got this FOMO or, this feeling of inclusion. I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well to operationalize it and make it part of our life enrichment programming, or make it part of, our ongoing resident communications plan. I feel like sometimes delivering 1 flyer and walking away is like planting a seed and expecting a vineyard to show up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Zesta, which is a kind of a lifestyles software platform that I think is fantastic for our industry. And there's other ones definitely out there like that are just as great. Well, you can actually go into their platform and refer a friend through that versus filling out a form. I mean, again, this going back in time and think we do it the same way. If we don't realize that the silent generation has adapted post-COVID because of kind of what happened with them, they had to learn how to stream and do DoorDash and Instacart and, their ability to use a smartphone and other platforms. Like if we don't realize that that's what's happening now, we are missing the boat. And I know people take that for granted, but who are the higher users using digital means of lifestyle? It's these older adults that are doing it. And, and people make fun of me all the time, but that's why Hulu's most streamed show on their platform the last 4 years has been Only Murders in the Building, which is led by a 76-year-old Steve Martin and Martin Short. And most of the characters in that show are older adults. And who's watching it? It's not 20-year-olds, it's older adults. So they figured this stuff out. And so if we're just treating them with the old way of doing it by the flyer, one, we're wasting money and paper and all that stuff, and let them continue to do what's becoming more and more natural for them.
100%. I think that often communities are underutilizing their internal TV channels, their internal digital signage for those opportunities to remind residents about referrals, or in another perspective, showcase the referrals that have come in, illustrating for other residents that this person referred this person and having both headshots up there. Right? You're creating that engagement. And I think that that's something that we struggle with, engagement specifically with wait lists. To, once they make that referral, that move-in might not happen for 6 months. So how do we engage those people who have been referred, but maybe are sitting on a wait list waiting for a unit to open up? How do we keep them just as excited to move in as they were when they first visited?
Yeah, well, and again, I don't want people with toe in the water. I want them knee deep in swimming. And so if they're giving you the waitlist deposit for one, so they you leave them alone, that's usually a bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
But two, we shouldn't be taking a big deep breath saying now we've got them, because competition still wants that prospect, and there's new competition coming into town. There's renovations going on there, so there's all this type of expansion because we know this tsunami's coming. So just because you got them on your wait list doesn't mean like you're done. Like Sherpa talks about it, Line talks about it now. Like this post-deposit relationship is as important, if not during the courting process or trying to get them towards the finish line. So yeah, I mean, you should be having waitlist deposit events specific just for them. Get them to create their own culture. 20, 50, 100 people are all part of our next chapter here at this community. Why don't you guys all become friends beforehand? And you don't have to host at your community. You can do it off-site. You can go to restaurants. You can do happy hour at a bar. One of our communities did a waitlist deposit event at a brewery, and the sales director is, very, very into the breweries, and it was great. And we had a great turnout. And guess what? They had a good time. So,
right.
So when you do that and they start enjoying themselves, they're not going anywhere else. So it is crucial that once you start building that wait list, the time you spend on them for specific events just for them is really important. And yes, it'd be great to include your ambassadors and your other residents, but it's okay to just pinpoint them too.
Yeah, let them feel like the VIP. I think that honestly, we should stop calling it a wait list if all they're doing is waiting. That's just a deposit, right? Yeah. It's not a relationship.
Well, it's not a relationship, and it becomes real estate driven. Oh, I have that 2-bedroom, 13 square foot, cottage you wanted, versus I want them to choose the community, the values of the community, the integrity of the community, the culture of the community. And then, yes, the real estate matters, but that's why they choose to come off the wait list, because they want to be there, not because you have the most ideal apartment for them.
Right. I agree. I mean, I concur with what you said in terms of we want them knee deep in swimming. If we want them to move in, we have to give them reasons to start mentally moving in way before the unit is ready.
Yeah, and I know you have a question.
Their warmth as a lead, and potential move-in, unless you're actively, to your point, scheduling events and doing things to keep them warm. And what we're seeing in terms of data, I mean, Welcome Home specifically says the boomers are taking their time. The sales cycle is continually increasing.
Yeah.
And so we can't stay passive during that time frame. And the whole resident referral concept that we're discussing is really the post-purchase experience.
Sure.
That fifth leg of everyone, in their marketing 101 went through the 5 stages of the buying journey. But in senior living, we're just now kind of capitalizing on what is that post-purchase experience. Are we effectively designing onboarding programs, and could they or should they extend to waitlist members rather than just actual physical, move-ins? Sometimes the waitlist when we're not engaging with it, it's just a soft no with a deposit attached.
Well, to me, nothing's more disappointing when a prospect says, boy, you seem to like me a lot more up until I gave you a check. And I've heard that before. And that's not a good feeling for the salesperson. The other part is sometimes sales teams measure success by their wait list versus occupancy, or they think, well, if I get this check, that'll suffice people that are watching me in my performance because I got this wait list deposit.
Mm-hmm. And I also, one of the things that we just worked through with one of our clients and are finishing up the case study on it is understanding that just because there's a deep wait list does not mean that when the time comes that those are going to be in a position to convert if you haven't been nurturing them.
Yep.
And ultimately that will tap incredibly quickly once you start having vacancies or there's unit attrition and you're hitting it. All of a sudden the 15 or 115 that you were sitting comfortably on are not the fit that they were when they deposited 2 years ago. And so that's where, to our discussion about keeping them engaged, that's where we keep a constant temp check.
Yep.
I feel like we should assign stages of readiness to our wait list in very much the same way we do to our overarching database.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And you also want to look at sales efficiency. And I was working with a client a few years back that had a really big wait list. And so I was walking through the community and I said, all right, and they took me through this really beautiful apartment with an unbelievable view. And if I was the prospect, I'd be like, yeah, I want this. And so I said to the salesperson, if I wanted this apartment today and I could give you 10% for a deposit, could I have it? She's like, well, no, I'd have to go through all my 1-bedroom waitlist deposits. And if anyone wasn't ready for it, then it could go to you. Well, I go, how many was that? Like, well, that's like 47 people. So now you got to call 47 people to say, hey, somebody wants this apartment. Do you want it? Talking about sales inefficiency. Like, we're pulling people out of the selling zone to actively work leads that may or may not be ready. And you've got one who, by the way, who's really ready and may be disappointed they don't get the apartment that they want. Like, that's been our industry for a long time, by the way. That's kind of a problem.
Well, and to your earlier point about, the incoming boomers and their expectations around community, the sales process, they want control. They want to be able to say no and still feel like they can move forward flexibly when they're ready. They want to maintain that sense of autonomy. And I feel like that vastly impacts the sales strategy. This isn't the silent generation who's like, oh, I put that deposit, I've been waiting for this call, and now I'm ready to move. Mm-hmm. These people are out doing bourbon tastings and have a laundry list of other things that are more important than taking your phone call. So if you haven't built that relationship, just, a soft no with the check attached to it, you have absolutely no idea what's going to convert for you. And if you're not keeping a good beat on their expectations, to your point, the sales process becomes completely wasted.
Yeah, and I think it's a natural kind of, as we move towards maybe other questions you brought up earlier, I think it's a natural transition to it is, what does your waitlist program look like, and how are you building it in terms of what people are paying to get in it and what they receive for it? If you're just putting a waitlist together, it's like $300 or something like that, and you have like 300 people on it. That's great, but again, where's the skin of the game for them? I mean, I think it's really important as salespeople. While we have a lot of hard work to do, and it is really hard work. We should have some reliance on the prospect themselves to be a part of this journey and do part of the work with you, right? If they really want to be here, they've got to be a part of this journey, and they got to show that they're skin in the game. So lowering the amount just to get a wait list deposit is probably not a good strategy. I know a lot of communities like to give, like, enjoy the community now, like get to use the gym, the dining program,
passport program, if you will.
passport, exactly.
Getting them, yes, the passport program, getting them comfortable with moving around the community, oriented. Absolutely.
And it's a great way to do it, but there is a but with that. You can't create it in a way, though, that they get to stay at home and enjoy everything at your community and never have to move. And so I think again, you have to create that program where they have skin in the game. It's a cost, it may be even a revenue producer slightly for the community per se. And it allows them, maybe there's a time limit on it. Maybe it's 18 months or 2 years. And then you have to re-up. But I want them to experience the lifestyle of the community and make new friends and be a part of it, but not to the detriment that they never move. It's kind of like, to me, like a lot of communities like to have their own home health, and it's great. And they use the home health outside the walls of the community. But in many, many, many cases, those residents who stay at home and get home care by that community never move into the independent living community. Maybe you get them for assisted living, because guess what? They like being home.
Mm-hmm. And, we are often selling against that. I think that going back to our earlier conversation about, if I handed you 10% down, could I move into this beautiful apartment today? Yeah. The industry is at, 90% roughly occupancy, according to Nick. And we're seeing that in multiple consulting engagements, the unit turn process and getting inventory on and available to book sometimes is presenting a problem. So going back to the idea of that waitlist engagement, using that as part of your strategic toolbox, if you will, for those times where it is a challenge to turn a series of units and you do need to maintain momentum with your waitlist group.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, or, not relying on your internal maintenance team to do the renovations either. I mean, this is a great time to have an outside contractor that you trust, that does a lot of the work for you, that they have their own schedule. And then you're freeing up your maintenance team to do what's probably their most important job, is keeping that community looking really nice, staying ahead of preventative maintenance type things, and making sure the community operationally, so that culture is really important, is running smoothly. So yeah, I mean, again, these communities have old bones. Now maybe it's a good time to reimagine it. Maybe that 2-bedroom that's 1,000 square feet is better as a big 1-bedroom, because boomers really want that space, but they don't want boxy, geographically kind of squared apartments. You can have more fun with these apartments and make it more what boomers or the next generation of prospects are looking for.
Yeah, I think the next generation of prospects, we talk about their expectations in terms of communication, but even how they use Alexa at home compared to how we're going to see that sort of technology embedded into our future communities. And going back to the idea of treating parts of your programming or parts of your community enhancement as revenue generators, I think the revenue is in the details. And I think it was our initial conversation, we were brainstorming, like, switching from standard cleaning or upgrading to organic only product cleaning as a revenue source, renting wine lockers to new residents. And, I think we talk about monetize like it's a dirty word, but at the same time, boomers have shown us that they will pay for what they want.
Yep.
So if we give them that option, that subscription model, if you will, they're going to be able to make better decisions and start to leverage some of the things that maybe aren't community differentiators in a large scale competitive market analysis, but are experience differentiators for your community.
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it. You hit it right in the head. Like, the next generation or boomers, or even some silent generation that have taken on boomer kind of characteristics, they will pay for what they want. And they want to pay for that experience. And they, if you do something above and beyond your community, it's okay to charge for it, because if people want to do it, it's their right to choose to do that or not. Again, you're giving them the control to have that. And so I think those are all really great ideas. I was on a previous podcast where I said this out loud, is if we're really trying to build retirement communities, I would recommend don't build them like retirement communities, because people don't want that. And, there's been success in, Jimmy Buffett and things like, Disney's creating their own, like, there's some success in that model. That's what prospects want. And again, it's not this cruise ship stuff. It's, I want something that is important to me. It makes me feel important. It validates who I am as a person. I get to show my family I'm continue to thrive and living. And to do that, you want to do the things you did at home or continue to do that kept you at home. I get the same things at this community that I got at home, but my life is even better. And that's so important to me. And been doing this over 30 years. Like, how are we making lives better for these prospects? And it's by giving them experiences. And if they have to pay for it, and in a way that maybe monetize it a little bit and it drives a little bit of revenue for the community, I would recommend it all the time.
Right. I think that one of my favorite quotes is always scent the soap. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about your favorite vacation you've ever been on or the coolest hotel you ever stayed at, you can remember what the soap smelled like. And if we started treating our senior living campuses as venues for inviting the community in and, hosting experiences, designing for experiences, I think that for me in the last 20 years has been kind of my personal mission is how can we scent the soap? How can we take the lemonade that's in the front hallway and add some essential oils and make it more healthy? How can we create partnerships within our community that position us as a partner, as an extension of what they're already experiencing, whether that's going to a play or whether that's taking a pottery class? I think that's one area where I love that you brought up Margaritaville and, Jimmy Buffett's model. That's one direction that I feel like as people are very interest-based, and people are somewhat polarized in what their interests are, creating opportunities for like-minded individuals to get together and designing those experiences that are then worth talking about. Right. So that takes it one step further from our brand isn't what we say it is. Jeff Bezos says it's what people say about you when you leave the room. So what kind of resident referrals would we get if we hosted our own Woodstock on campus and let everyone invite a friend?
Right. And again, it's thinking not like what the community wants. You're thinking about what the prospect wants or the residents want. And I know that's a tricky slope. Listen, we understand if residents live there a long time, they could be silent generation and some of them still could be a GI generation. So they like different things. So that's why your lifestyle program needs to be robust and really looks at different things that prospects want and residents want. If you're going to and put them in together and have them kind of experience together, it's got to be something everyone enjoys. And it can't be the tried and true Frank Sinatra impersonator, bringing Elvis in the building. It's got to be a lot of different things. And it's got to be the experience that they want. I mean, if you ask boomers some of the things that they're doing now, the ones that have grandkids, it's their experience with their grandkids and doing things with their grandkids that makes them feel just as active and young, and they get to be seen by their grandkids and they such positive light. That's what they want to experience when they go to these communities as well.
Yeah, they want choice, they want connection, and connection to the things that matter to them. We were actually working on branded coloring sheets for intergenerational programming events at one of our clients' communities. I think that I was recently speaking with an HR representative, and we were talking about the fact that if we want staff comfortable coming in our building in 10 years, they have to start coming in when they're 5 with their daycare. And I say that because often we all think of the gestalt that we have in our mind, that snapshot image of the first time we saw a nursing home or a senior living community. And we just published a blog back in April called The Joke's on Us, Senior Living Has an Image Problem. And so I think for solving a lot of our problems, whether it's resident referrals and overcoming that public bias perception, potentially staffing, those are all areas where just getting people comfortable with our environment and making it a place that they want to be in starts to have a long-term pipeline. It's like a long tail effect.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt when prospects come to our communities now, they do go, wow, this was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, right? Because they have that kind of mindset of what their parents went through, but they're still not choosing us yet.
No, and that's that psychographic profiling. We talked earlier about the next 3 look like the last 3, but really when we do our psychographic profiles for our clients, we separate the current residents from the prospects, and it allows us to see those, to your point, trends of this is not actually what's most important. What looked like care and convenience now looks a lot more like experiences and excitement.
Yeah, and listen, this whole relationship building, and I see it on LinkedIn all the time and other business platforms about, social network platforms about, well, we're really applying this relationship type sales program now. Listen, that's been going on for a long time. Like, this is not revolutionary and brand new. This is just like the psychology of a human being. They want to feel empathetically connected to someone or something. And so, like, I think every salesperson likes to say, well, I have a great relationship with that prospect. We need to test that relationship as consultants. Like, what does that look like to you? Well, I know that she's got 2 kids. Well, what's her kids' names? Who's the dog? What type of breed? What's the dog's name? I mean, I'm working with the community right now. Their dog is named after a former college athlete and now professional athlete. And I said, well, for the next event that she's attending, we should get their dog a jersey from that professional athlete when they played at college. So we know it ties geographically to the college. And the team's like, yeah, we should do that. And it wasn't easy to get because he's been out of the college for 10 years. But she's going to love the fact that we heard her, we understood her. And whether she puts that jersey on the dog or not during game weeks and things like that, that's up to her. But she knows we've took the time to understand who she is and listen to her. And we know what she enjoys about her life currently. That stuff's the same, but we have to be really, really good at it. And again, if you're having an empathetic connection with a prospect that is such a tireless relationship because you work so hard at it, you'll be exhausted. And that's what I want to see from a sales counselor when they're done. I want that meeting with them to be invigorating and drive such passion that they're exhausted afterwards, because that means they really have a good relationship with that prospect.
Yeah, I love the Erin Brockovich example, when she's so sick from doing all the work and they're quizzing her about her contacts. I think that there's something really essential that you mentioned there when it comes to how can we do deep discovery, right? How can we capture that information, all of the traditional sales challenges we have in our industry, but also how can we do that at scale? So I go back to those segmentation or psychographic groups that allow us to say, we know that 50% of the people who are inquiring have a pet. So pet treats, pet bowls. Why are we investing our money in branding water bottles that are going to get thrown away or thrown on the ground, right? Let's talk about having creative follow-up tools that truly surprise and delight, that leave a lasting impression, because the framework we use is called the human first philosophy. Mm-hmm. And that means we're all humans first. So just as I said, we all have our finance guy or our car guy. We also all want to be seen as individuals. We all want to have choice. None of us would sign up to lose options in our life.
Right. No. I'm going to go back.
None of us, not today, not tomorrow. Yeah. And, shifting with consumer expectations is a huge part of that. But part of it is just recognizing that consumer expectations are human baselines and making sure that we're addressing in our sales process and our marketing communications that psychology. We heard you, we see you, we welcome you, and you are like us when it comes to those resident referral programs. There is someone here who will sit with you at lunch, because I can't imagine how scary it would be to have that 7th grade cafeteria moment of walking into the dining room for the first time and not knowing a soul. Right? So those are the resident onboarding programs that we can operationalize, that we can proceduralize in such a way, using our CRMs, using our internal communications platforms, to make sure that those residents end up having such a solid experience consistently that they're telling other people about it.
Yeah, and we're doing it in a very genuine way versus gimmicky. And again, I'm all for like branding your own, pet treats and things like that, but always remembering it's individually for that person for the right reason. And if to me, if they, that their dog or their pet's the most important thing, and they're potentially not going to move here without the pet, your creative follow-up may not be a thank you card to the prospect. It could be to that pet saying, dear Sassy, we're so glad that you're considering our community, and make sure you bring your human owner to the community next time you come. Like, that's the stuff.
Bonus points if we can get a resident's cat to send the letter, right?
Yeah, right.
This is Chuckles. I'm L2, and I can't wait for you to be my neighbor.
Right. I love that idea. That's new.
I love yappy hours, right? Especially for those pet owners. And I love that we're both jumping into pets because it's such an easy segment, and it's something that is so important from a seeing me, and it's as important as my child to a lot of, especially solo older adults.
Yep.
That is their companion.
Right.
And so I think that it's not about it being in bulk, but it's really about it being accessible to our sales teams to do solid, consistent, fantastic follow-up.
For sure.
Yeah. So before we finish up, I want to rapid fire you. If you could fix one thing across all communities in senior living after today, what would it be?
I think it would absolutely be, just because you did it a certain way 8 or 10 years ago and it didn't work, doesn't mean you can't try it again. You've had new residents move in since then, different experiences, different, you may have leadership changes in your own community. Like, just because it didn't work doesn't mean you give up on it. You got to keep trying things that really promotes lifestyle in the community. And again, the rest of the stuff we can coach when it comes to, sales consulting and marketing and advertising. But what's the culture of the community? And don't give up if it doesn't work the first time. It's okay to keep trying things.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I think census is the metric, culture is the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the recent Align reports actually said that 25% of senior living communities feel like they don't have the right data to make informed decisions. And I think that that's a huge issue and a huge barrier that we support providers overcoming, because all of the answers to solve the problems in the community exist within the community. Right. If we need more robust programming, let's tap on our residents and ask them what they think. Let's get some first party data. Let's break down our prospects and find ways to engage meaningfully with them, whether that's a brewery visit, whether that's a yappy hour. I think that we can fix our lens so that we can see those gaps more clearly and start to move the needle on things that actually impact census.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure that our audience is going to get a great amount of insight and value out of our conversation, but I look forward to chatting again.
Yeah, and what I want to say to the listeners who are out there, hopefully it's going to be a lot, right? And not just like, my mom. But I love the fact that, we're in the same space, looking for the same clients in this space. And it's great that we can experience and exchange ideas and have fun doing it. And at the end of the day, we want all of our clients, whether you get the business or I get the business or another agency gets the business, to really grow their community in a way that's going to be great for the next generation of residents.
Yes, I love that we met, and as thought leaders, right, we're here to offer our spicy take and to disrupt what's currently being done. I love that that's your approach. It's certainly ours, and overarchingly, I think we're in alignment when it comes to getting this industry kind of excited and looking at where we can deliver value to the end user.
Yeah, shout out to Hoyle Kuntz for introducing us, right?
Yes, shout out to Hoyle. So many thanks.
Right. Thank you, Adrienne, so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.